What's up, guys? Welcome to Whiskey. My name is Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey. And if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. That sounds interesting. Hit subscribe down below. With that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're going to be looking at the Aberlour 12 at 48%. Stick around. Alright, so we're looking at an Aberlour today. This one is the 12-year-old, but this is the good 12-year-old. This is the craft 12-year-old. This is the one that comes in at 48%. Now, they do have another one out there that's more widely available. That one comes in at 40%, much like the majority of the Aberlour range, which is unfortunate because they do have good whiskeys, a lot of them with pretty weak ABVs. But before I get too negative, let's just appreciate the fact that at least in this instance, we do have an alternative to that standard 40% release. And that's just not something you see very often in whiskey. Now, we have it with our Aberlour here. We've seen it with Glenlivet. They have their licensed dram, their illicit still releases. Good whiskeys, by the way. And I can't, off the top of my head, think of any other brands with two simultaneous releases, one craft, one not. If you guys can think of any, let me know down below in the comments, but it's rare. So yeah, very kind of them to offer up a quality entry-level release for the nerds like us, the whiskey nerds who need their craft presentation. And you know, it would be really interesting to do a video comparing the regular 12 at 40 to this one at 48%. That is something that I considered doing myself, but I'm cheap and I didn't want to spend the money because I don't really like the release at 40%. Well, then again, I haven't had it in a really long time. It might be worth revisiting, but I'm not going to bother today. We'll just be looking at this one, and let's be honest, this is going to be the good one. It's going to be the better of the two. This is made for whiskey nerds and snooty whiskey reviewers and the distinguished gentlemen who watch them. Stop it, Jeff. You're just buttering us up. No? Ridiculous. Leave a like, though. So this is one I've actually tried several times over the years, and if I'm being totally honest, I always wanted to like it more than I actually did. It never really took me anywhere. It never really popped, but it was always a nice step up from the standard 12. So anyway, this should be a really interesting review because I haven't come back to this bottle in a while, since before Aberlour updated their label design. And it does seem like, speaking broadly, Aberlour's in a different place these days than it was back then. That's certainly true of their Aberlour release, which is not quite where it used to be. But let's see how that applies to our 12-year-old here. So let's jump into the review. And also, if you haven't left a like yet, please do so. That'd be greatly appreciated. So as we've discussed, this one comes in at 48%, which is very healthy. We've also got non-chill filtered here, and it's a naturally colored whiskey. Huh? Really? Why? So I'm actually not 100% sure that this is colored, but I did hear that that's the case. If you guys know any differently, you can let me know down below in the comments. But if they did add color, they didn't add too much. It's relatively natural looking. As for the bottle, if you've seen my previous reviews, you know I love Aberlour bottles. I think they look fantastic. It's a very modern look, but it's kind of feigning that old school craft aesthetic. Very cool. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 for presentation. So we've got non-chill filtered in big bold letters right in the middle there. Gotta love that. Nothing about being natural color anywhere, which is kind of suspicious. We've got American oak casks here. We've got sherry oak casks here. It says just the right balance of fruit and spice. So, sounds good, looks good. So I did add a touch of water. Let's try our nose. Okay, vanilla and sherry up front. Definitely a very sherry forward nose, and it's nice. Yeah, so like caramel, baking spices, cinnamon in here. We have oak, we have fresh apples, we have Christmas cake, the classics. We also have some earthiness in here. There's definitely some spearmint. I get some faint tannin, some red fruits in here, and this is a fun one. I'm getting chocolate oatmeal, which I really like. This is a nice nose. Let's try the palate. Okay. So straight into really big sherry. A little bit more forward than the nose suggested. I'm getting what I'm guessing is European oak in here, which tends to be much drier and much spicier. I don't know, could be. Of course, heavy sherry. Big cinnamon and nutmeg notes in here. I'm getting peppercorn. I'm getting chocolate oatmeal again. We've also got custard and cocoa powder and coffee in here, so a bit of a tiramisu vibe, and it's good. It doesn't get too cloying, it doesn't get too sweet, which I like. And now our finish. Okay, kind of tart, a little bit bitter, a little bit sour here. I'm getting apple vinegar, some tannins, some red fruits, there's some lingering baking spices, there's some oak, and there's some black pepper. It's medium in length. Okay, so this is one of those whiskeys that I honestly have a little bit of a hard time wrapping my head around. Those of you with a bit of experience, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. One of those whiskeys that sometimes it hits, sometimes it's kind of whatever. At its best, this is a beautiful entry-level sherried banger. It's complex, it's interesting, it's spicy, it's intricate, it's got its own character, and it's not one of these obvious, sweet, cloying, over-the-top, window dressing kind of modern sherried whiskeys. It does have a bit of an old-school vibe to it. Unfortunately, at its worst, it is a little bit of a mess. Now, it's not a mess with bad flavors, it's not a mess without potential, and it's, as I said, very good sometimes, but no, it's the finish. Like, the finish throws me off. There's a sourness in there. It's not the bitterness. There's a sourness to it that you don't get too often in whiskey. And granted, it does get better when you add some water, but it's still off-putting. Like, I just never know what I'm going to get when I pop this bottle. As I said, sometimes it works great, but other times, I'm not going to say it's bad. That's too tough of a word. That's too harsh, but it does not work. As soon as that sour, oaky note kicks in, like, that loses me. Still, this is better than a lot of your other entry-level sherried offerings, at least in my opinion. Hot take, but I like this more than something like a GlenDronach 12. Now, GlenDronach 12 does have its fans. It's not a bad whiskey, but it's not the kind of whiskey I enjoy drinking anymore. I find it very sweet. I find it very engineered, very modern, very obvious. And this whiskey is none of those things. So this whiskey is pretty good. It's not bad. I do like it. And speaking generally, I'm not a huge fan of Aberlour. I think they make good whiskey, but too many whiskeys in their lineup that come in at like 40, 43%. And let's be honest, that's just boring these days. Even what's arguably their flagship release, the Aberlour, is nowhere near where it used to be. It used to be such a beautifully rich and complex whiskey. Nowadays, I think they're using lesser casks. I think the whiskey's gotten younger, and it's just a disappointment. I don't buy them like I used to. I might come back to them once in a blue moon, but no, that was such a banger back in the day. So I would say that over the last few years, I don't have a lot of confidence in Aberlour's trajectory. But if they gave us more whiskeys like this, even if they were flawed, they'd be so much more interesting than the 40% overpriced stuff that we're getting from them now. Anyway, rant over. Let's get into our scores. I'm feeling a little bit generous today, so I'm going to land on 85 for this one. Initially, it was 84. But just be aware that on a bad day, this can be as low as 81, 82. And then we'll have our really good days. I might go as high as 87. So it's all over the map. It's kind of frustrating. I never know what I'll be drinking when I pop this cork. But do I recommend it? Yeah. I mean, it's not too expensive. It can be very good. And again, it's a whiskey for whiskey drinkers. It's worth trying. Yeah, I do think our value is pretty good here. Not a lot of whiskeys have these specs at this price with this age statement. And as I said, it's spicy, it's complex, it can be very interesting. And I'm sure some of you are going to be okay with the overall experience. I'm sure some of you will genuinely love this stuff. So despite not being what I would call balanced, I still think it's an interesting whiskey, and I appreciate that an effort was made by the brand. Now, if this was overpriced or too expensive, I certainly wouldn't recommend it. But as it's still priced as an entry-level offering, yeah, you can check it out and decide for yourself. All right, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, please consider becoming a patron. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. You know that is always appreciated. And I do want to hear from you. Have you tried our Aberlour 48% 12-year-old? What are your thoughts? How would it compare to the regular 12? How does it compare to other entry-level 12-year-old sherried whiskeys out there? I do want to hear from you. Let me know down below in the comments. Also, you can tell me what you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.